what are some of the measurements that you are taking with your clients? Like, what are you looking at for your clients?
Let's go for the full journey, right? So when they first sign on, I'll work through just a general questionnaire that'll ask them all their lifestyle aspects and where their stress is at, pretty much like a lifestyle report card.
Mm.
And we kind of use that as a subjective measure that we can compare to subjectively later down the track. So more on that mental side and things like that. But then when it comes to the physical side, obviously, taking their height, taking their weight, all those kinds of things. If they do have a more specific conditioning or body composition goal, then I will often refer them to get a DEXA scan, which, as far as I'm aware, is the most kind of accurate measurement of body composition. And there's so many variables that affect that. So obviously I recommend them go do it first thing in the morning and those kinds of things. And then when it comes to the fitness testing, once again, it depends on their goals. If their goal is, like, I work with a lot of individuals that have injuries or have just come out of surgery of, reconstruction, like knee reconstructions or a shoulder surgery. So the first measure is pain. Can we get you out of pain? And so obviously recording that and taking notes of their pain and obviously their range of motion and things like that as well. But then if you got, a client that's their goal is to get stronger, it's like, right, well, we'll do a baseline measurement of strength. Usually, like, you got to test them in the strength that they want to improve on. There's no point doing a bench press test if you're trying to improve their leg strength. Like, there's very little correlation there. So there's a lot of particular, the answer is it depends when it comes to the exact tests I use with each client. But the main ones are those, just the more subjective lifestyle assessments, just so, because I think those lifestyle factors, one, helps me coach them, but also is extremely important for them to even just reflect on to see, all right, or maybe they haven't achieved their goal because of something else that's going on in their lifestyle. It's not, they could be going to the gym 5 days a week, but if something's going on at home or they're not sleeping enough or they're not eating enough, then those factors are going to will affect their progression towards their goal.
Yeah, that's a super valid point. And I like that even as an online coach, you still have relatively individualized standardizations, I suppose, or like tests for your client. I think that that's really important because I think that kind of cookie cutter approach can be, like you said, you're a square trying to go through a round hole and you're trying to test leg strength, but all of a sudden someone's made you do a bench press and you're like, well, I don't really need that. What's that for? I think it's really important to question your own measurements as well and why you're doing them and why you want to be doing them. So that's really valid. Myself, we got tested on the weekend. We teamed up with some physios close to my gym and they brought in their force plates. So for anyone who doesn't know what a force plate is it measures the force pressing into the plate and it gives you a huge amount of data and a lot of information about certain things. So we did some jump tests, which is called a counter movement jump and a rebound. So we were testing our elastic ability as well as our muscular ability. And then we also did some plyometric push-ups. And it was super interesting because this type of testing and this kind of movement, this kind of power-based movement was my bread and butter, like totally my bread and butter. I would eat it up. I actually remember at uni, I think I had the biggest, if not one of the biggest counter movement jumps. Just as a gymnast and a dancer and being a short ass, I was always having to jump and reach for things. So it was one of those ones for me that was really cool. But even just the test itself, like, it's amazing when you're actually testing something. Like, Rhys, I want to talk to this about you in a second. You get a bit sweaty, you get a bit nervous. You're like, oh, this is cool. Like, this is interesting. And I think that sometimes that's a really useful response because it can drive you to obviously do a little bit more. But then it can also backfire and you can completely become all in your head and go completely too far in it and not succeed because you're too busy thinking about your own performance. So I'm really interested to see, I've done recently power testing with my small muscle groups with my pelvic physio. So she's got a little dynamometer and put my hip in different positions and measured my force through that. So that'll be really cool. So that is post endosurgery recovery, making sure that all of my core and pelvic muscles are actually functioning the way that they should. When I did the test initially, all my big global muscles were, spot on, super strong. And then all of the little stabilizer muscles were like terrible. They were so bad. So that's been a nice focus for me for my training. But the plyometric push-up that got me. Like, I used to be able to rep plyometric push-ups, and now I'm like, okay, I'm going to find a way to put this back in my program, just because, I don't know, it was like a point of pride. So measurements are cool because they can definitely, like I said, motivate you and go through that.